Hi there, students. This is Mr. Pransky. I'm here in my kitchen with a little bit of kitchen table science for you. So today we're going to explore the two potato clock. So what is a two potato clock, you might ask? You probably don't have one of these in your house. Nobody gets up with a alarm clock that has two potatoes attached to it, but that's what makes this clock a little bit unique. So before we start our investigation, we should probably make some observations about what we have in front of us here. So you see I have a couple potatoes, and these are Kroger Gold brand potatoes, two regular potatoes. And then I have a probe, or two-ended probe here that was included with the two potato clock kit, and it has a green wire. I also have two probes. One's attached to a red wire, one's attached to a blue wire, and both of those are attached to the back of the two potato clock. And looking at the main part of the clock itself, we have a plastic blue cups on each side, and this houses the clock portion. And there is a digital clock here, but you can see it's not turned on or anything. There's no numbers on there. If I hold the buttons down, nothing appears to change. So it appears, at least, we could infer that it does not have power currently. So there's no batteries in it or anything like that. Okay, so let's talk about the two potato clock, and then we'll talk about why we're using this as an activity to kind of kickstart some discussion. So what we're supposed to do is follow the set of directions to put the two potato clock together. One of the observations I didn't make when I was showing you the probes is kind of important. If you look at each end of my green wire here with my probes, you'll see I have a gold end and I have a silver end, okay? It's kind of significant for the directions. And then my blue wire has a silver end and my red wire has a gold end, so they're a little bit different in that respect. All right, so what you're supposed to do is take your gold probe and put it in your potato. So you just shove it in the potato there, like I did. And then I'm gonna take my silver probe and shove it in my potato as well. And then the cups are supposed to hold your potato. So I'm gonna put the first potato in there. Do we see anything come up on the clock? No, nothing is happening. So now I'm gonna take my green wire probe and I'm gonna stick it in my potato on the top here. And then I'm going to take my red wire with my gold probe and I'm going to stick it in the top. And if things work properly, aha, now we can see that our clock is showing a time, okay? So the science behind the two potato clock, we're not actually even going to worry about that right now. There is a lot of science behind this, but it's actually kind of complicated science. What I want to think about at this time is really what it means to be a scientist. Being a scientist is really about asking questions. And asking questions, that the word for that is called inquiry. If you're inquiring, you're basically just asking questions. Doug from Mystery Science always ends his lessons with, stay curious. And I think that's a great phrase that they use because that's really what science is about. So I want you to use your curiosity at this point to ask some questions about our two potato clock. An obvious question would be, how does it work? And that's actually a pretty complicated question. What I'd rather you ask are some questions that we could actually test. For example, in the beginning, I told you I used Gold brand potatoes, right? So you might ask a question, could we use a different type of potato? Could I use a sweet potato? Could I use an Idaho potato? Or I'm not sure how many different kinds of potatoes there are. Does any potato work? Okay, that's inquiry. That's using your curiosity to ask a question. We might ask, could we create a 3 potato clock or a 1 potato clock for that matter? Could we stick all the probes into one potato and get it to work? We might ask, would that affect the clock? Okay, we might say, does the clock keep accurate time? We might ask, if I put an extra potato, would the clock run faster or brighter? If I used one potato, would it run slower? Would it run weaker? What if I used a larger potato? What would happen then? Okay, so you see, as you get thinking, there's lots and lots of questions we can ask, and we could actually test them pretty easily. It'd be pretty easy for me to take those probes out and try this larger potato, right? So what I want you to do at this time on our next slide is I want you to write some questions, and it has to start with a capital and end with a question mark. I want you to write a question that you think we could investigate related to the two potato clock, okay? And then I'm going to take maybe 10 or 12 of the best questions or the most testable questions. And then in class, I'm going to bring this back and we're going to test your questions that you had, okay? So I would recommend you think about your questions and then also look at your neighbor's questions, the questions that they put up there. A lot of times that will get you thinking and you'll think of another question when you see somebody else's good idea. It makes you think of something maybe slightly different. So you're welcome to look at other people's ideas. Let's just try not to duplicate ideas. We don't want to do the same question as somebody else. And believe me, I would say there's hundreds of questions we could ask about this two potato clock that we could actually test and change in different ways. We could change, what we're testing with. We could change wires. We could try to test things to do with the actual time on the clock, which has it changed? Yeah, it's at 12:03, so time has passed. So it looks like the clock is not only lighting up, but it looks like it's keeping time. But we'd have to maybe get a stopwatch to it to see if it keeps accurate time or not, or maybe it runs fast, maybe it runs slow. So I want you to get thinking about our two potato clock and ask some questions. Here's a look at the back of it. Some of you might be wondering about what the buttons are for example. What do they do? So I want you to write at least 2 questions that you can ask about our two potato clock and put it in the next slide. All right, I look forward to testing out your ideas in class. I'll see you next time.